Welcome back to another edition of the Mandatory Live, coming to you early in the morning, 7 a.m. here on the West Coast, 10 a.m. on the East Coast, where Bryan is. We thank you so much for joining us this morning. Remember, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button because it helps the channel grow. Also, follow us on our social media channels. We're at the Mandatory TKO, and you can find us on the audio side as well. So wherever you find your shows or podcasts, you can find us there. Leave us a rate and review. Give us a 5-star because that always helps. Gervonta Davis and Lamont Roach, their card was revealed. And this is actually a solid ass card, Bryan. When I took a look, I'm like, whoa, this is really entertaining. And I'll let you go through the card since, you made a little bit of a mistake there. You don't want to go through it? Well, Jose Valenzuela will be back on this card, and he's going to be taking on Gary Antoine Russell. That's the co-main. That's a great fight. Is that not a good fight? Okay. Oh, never mind. I'm not picking up what Bryan was dropping. Alberto Puello is going to be back as well. He's going to be taking on Sandor Martin, another tough fight. This is going to take place March 1st at the Barclays Center. And Bryan, to me, this card is absolutely stacked. And Tellez is going to be taking on J-Rock. I don't even remember the last time Julian Williams was in the ring. And that's for a WBA interim belt.
January of last year.
Okay, so it's been a minute. And this card to me is stacked. Like, this is a very, very good, entertaining fight. I want to see every fight on this card.
The Tellez Williams one is the only one where I feel like I know what's going to happen there. I mean, and Tank Roach also to some degree, but I do think, look, I think Lamont Roach is being a little too disrespected here, but
Yeah.
That's while acknowledging like this is another champion the Tank is fighting that's moving up in weight, moving up from being a super featherweight champion to fighting at lightweight. This happened with Hector Luis Garcia as well, also who I thought was good and who Lamont Roach beat. So I think where we're looking at right now on this card is the two fights I think is going to garner the most attention. Is the Tank one obviously, but this Jose Valenzuela, Gary Antoine Russell one is very interesting. Now, I don't think Gary Antoine Russell necessarily deserves a title shot because he lost to Alberto Puello and then was still number one contender by one of the governing bodies. But Jose Valenzuela has a title after beating Isaac Cruz. He has the WBA. Gary Antoine Russell, leading up to the Alberto Puello fight, had an outstanding, like he was building an outstanding resume and he had a big time amateur pedigree. It looked like he was going to be a future champion, all these different things. And just looking at like this fight, while I don't think Gary Antoine Russell necessarily should get a title shot after losing to Alberto Puello, I would also acknowledge like he could win this fight and it wouldn't surprise me.
Well, I do believe that Jose Valenzuela might be extremely underrated because he gets the win against Isaac Cruz, but going into that fight, I think a lot of people were taking Isaac Cruz, but this was a fight where Valenzuela boxed beautifully. Gary Antoine Russell was pegged to be that dude. Like, we know how good the Russell family is, and I feel like it's been a little bit disappointing because I also think he should be further along than he is. But I'm still going to take Jose Valenzuela in this fight, just based off what I saw against Isaac Cruz when it comes to being technically sound in the skill, but very entertaining. This might be the best fight on the card. Like, Tank is going to put on a good show. Lamont Roach is going to put on a good show. It's going to be a good fight. Let's keep in mind Lamont Roach is coming up as well in that fight.
Yep.
But this co-main is dope as hell. And then when you take a look at Puello and Sandor Martin, that's a very good fight as well. Sandor Martin makes everything difficult. Like, I'm looking at that fight, Bryan, and I don't know who I'm going to pick.
Me neither. That to me, this is, I don't think it's going to be the best fight in terms of action or anything like that.
No, but us nerds, like us boxing nerds, we're looking at that card like that's the fight, yo. Like, that's the fight we want to see because I don't know who I'm picking in that fight. I guarantee you Sandor Martin makes it difficult.
The only thing I don't like is that he's coming off a long layoff.
Split decision. It's gonna be like majority decision, split decision, I swear. There's gonna be controversy for this fight. And you know what? Let's go over to Foxy because I believe this. The undercard is better than the main event for me. The undercard is dope.
Yeah, I like minus Tellez versus J Rock Williams. I might be disrespecting J Rock Williams.
But
I
like
mean,
I'm excited to see Julian Williams because I saw him on the bill and I was like, yo, like I can't remember the last time I saw him fight. And he was always extremely entertaining for me to watch. So I'm excited to watch him fight. I guess just like the fan in me.
he hasn't gotten a meaningful win since 2019 against Jared Hurd.
Yeah.
Since then, he's been knocked out by Jason Rosario, was upset by Vladimir Hernandez, won against two journeymen, got knocked out by Carlos Adames. So this is basically the showcase for Yoenis Tellez. Like, how good are you? And J Rock is playing the role of gatekeeper slash, if you're a wrestling fan, jobber to the stars here. And Tellez, like they're moving him up quickly. He's 9-0, but he's Cuban, had an amateur pedigree, so is going to move up a little bit quicker than the average fighter. And I think this would be a big win for him. So if he can put on a show and a showcase performance against an opponent who's going to be there and who's been a champion, then yeah, it'll tell us something. Like standard boxing protocol. It's like, all right, this is your shot. You're facing a former champion. We'll see if the former champion still has it. It'll be a massive win if J. Rock Williams could get it. But Tellez, like, this is set up for you. Don't fuck it up. And then Puello Martin. I mean, Martin hasn't fought in over a year. Is my only sort of hang up. But he's deserving of something because there are a bunch of people who think that he should have been champion after beating Teofimo Lopez in 2022. He knocked down Teofimo Lopez in that fight. Like, Sandor Martin is a motherfucker, man. Like, he beat Mikey Garcia at a time where not a lot of people thought that was going to happen, for example. He's a tough fight stylistically. And then when you look at Valenzuela's a slight favorite against Gary Antoine Russell. I just looked, it's minus 174. One book, Gary Antoine Russell's plus 126. I'd be surprised if that doesn't move a little bit closer to one another because I think you're talking about Valenzuela being a little underrated, and that may be so because there are a bunch of people who thought he got robbed against Chris Colbert the first time before knocking him out the second time.
That was me. That was me. I thought he got robbed.
And then you have the fight against Isaac Cruz, obviously, where I set it up here. If he boxes, he'll win that fight. If he just boxes and doesn't brawl, and he switched it up on Isaac Cruz, and Isaac Cruz doing the same shit that he tends to do over and over, just moving forward, not cutting off the ring, and he got outboxed. And all that being said, I think Gary Antoine Russell might be a little undervalued here. It was a split decision loss to Alberto Puello in a close fight. I thought he lost, but at the same time, like, if you told me, because Gary Antoine Russell has the higher ceiling of the two fighters, if you told me he wins this fight, I would not be surprised at all. In fact, I may even bet that. Like, I may like Gary Antoine Russell in this fight. The irony is that Puello beat Russell, and I could see Martin beating Puello and Russell beating Valenzuela, and it wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, and I also think for Jose Valenzuela, because he's from the Pacific Northwest, so we just claim him over here now. Well, I am. Anyways, I feel like there's not enough hype around him for what he did against Isaac Cruz. Like, that's probably one of the most impressive wins of last year, Brian.
I disagree. I think he's plenty hyped from what I've seen, from my consumption.
Going into that fight, though, against Isaac Cruz, like the hype around Isaac Cruz, like it was massive, dude. And Jose Valenzuela fought through that. And I think there should be more cachet to his name. So maybe that's just me, but I'm not hearing a lot of people talk about him. But nonetheless, this is a great card. I'm looking forward to it. Drop your comments below. Let us know if you're more excited for the undercard than the co-main. But nonetheless, let us know who you got. Who you're going to be rolling with for each of these fights. Drop your comments below. Brian,
are you taking Valenzuela?
Yes.
In the fight against Russell?
I'm taking Valenzuela because I haven't really been impressed with Gary Antoine Russell for a minute. I think
he barely fights. That's probably why. That's another problem. He fights once a year. Fights once a year as a prospect.
Super talented, though. Super talented. But I've been too impressed with Jose Valenzuela. Yeah. And at the same time, like, I want to see what Gary Antoine we get.
Yeah.
The Russell family is so good, and I wish we saw more of them, but I gotta go with what I've seen lately. So I'm going with Jose Valenzuela. Who are you taking in that fight?
I'm gonna be very tempted to take Gary Antoine Russell.
The
Just
odds will probably be good.
he's plus 126, and Gary Antoine Russell is like he stopped all his opponents leading up to the Alberto Puello fight. I remember seeing Valenzuela get knocked out by Edwin De Los Santos a couple years ago, very early on in a fun fight. This is before the Chris Colbert back and forth. Gary Antoine Russell has power. Like there could be some interesting value, and I'm actually going to take a look right now. The no, it's not up yet to win by knockout, but Gary Antoine Russell by knockout is something I may sniff around and see. I think Valenzuela could win this fight. Don't get me wrong, but I'm very tempted to potentially bet Gary Antoine Russell by stoppage, just because I think he's being slept on a little bit here, and I get it. Like Valenzuela deserves a ton of credit for how he boxed Isaac Cruz. Like this is what I wanted to see. I wanted to see if he was going to put it all together for that performance. But Gary Antoine Russell's pedigree is being slept on a little bit here. I worry about the activity is the main thing. But that dude has power.